Welcome to the Family Law Growth Podcast. We interview the nation's fastest growing family law firms to get insights on what is working today. We leave no stone unturned, from intake to the biggest mistakes they've made while scaling to multi-7 figures and 8 figures. I'm your host, Elliot, co-founder of Empirical 360. Let's dive into the episode. All right, so welcome to the next episode of the Family Law Growth Podcast. I am going to say it. I'm super excited for this episode. In fact, forget all the other guests. This could be the most valuable episode you watch because I've seen what non-attorney salespeople can do to a firm. So I am joined by Allison Swanson, who works at Henry Bell Law. So Allison, introduce yourself for us.
Hi, everybody. My name is Allison Swanson. Like Elliot said, I work for Henry Bell Law Firm, been there almost 3 years, and I am the client acquisition manager.
Ooh, client acquisition manager. So can you tell us what a client acquisition manager does, and then what does a client engagement specialist do for the audience?
Sure. So let me start with client engagement specialist because that's what I have been for the majority of my time at the firm. So basically, a client engagement specialist speaks to all of the potential clients who we may work with. At our firm, we offer free 45-minute case evaluations, and we use that time to learn more about what that potential client is going through, their situation. We really just listen and then obviously try to bridge what they're going through to the firm solutions, how we can help them, next steps, options, walk them through retainer, all of that. So basically, in a nutshell, a client engagement specialist tries to get as many clients into the firm as possible.
Okay, so that's client engagement. So we don't just call them salespeople. I guess that would be awkward.
Yeah.
So client engagement specialist, and then what does a client acquisition manager do?
So my new role at the firm, which I'm super excited about, I am still doing the client engagement specialist side of things, but I am also now managing our sales team. So we have an awesome team of salespeople, intake specialists. So basically, I kind of do the training, just help when needed if somebody is struggling, or just basically provide feedback and really try to engage the team as much as possible to make sure we are hitting our monthly goals.
Very nice. Okay, so you're now managing that team. So can you, before you got into law firm sales, what was your like? And the reason I'm asking this for the audience, if you're listening, is it's really, in my experience, good to know what good looks like. Allison is great. So if you're interviewing salespeople, hopefully they sound like this. So that's why I'm asking these questions for you guys. Okay. I know Allison now, so I kind of get all this, but this is for you guys. So Allison, what did you do before you came to work at the law firm? Like, were you in sales or just randomly you picked this up?
Yeah, no, it's really funny, like the how I got here. But before I go into that story, I'll back up and try to stay focused on your question. What did I do before Henry Bell? So yes, I was in sales. I actually worked for a few beauty companies before, Avon, the Body Shop, and basically I was in charge of district sales managers at Avon, like on the corporate side, and I had a territory of representatives that I manage. So we were responsible for the number of representatives coming into our territory. So we had recruiting. We were responsible for teaching all of those new people and even current representatives how to sell our products. So product training and development, sales, recruiting, that's really, and I was at Avon for, gosh, almost 10 years on the corporate side, not as like an independent contractor. So I worked for Avon Corporate and really did a lot of sales, product training, learning and development there. Again, in a very condensed version of what I did there.
So what was, like, when you were doing sales outside of the law firm, what was the most expensive thing you sold? Like, what I want people to see is, how did it translate? Like, did you sell super expensive stuff or like not really?
No, I mean, is Avon, a body shop. So our products were very on the affordable side, skincare, shampoo, makeup, like
Oh.
nothing was really majorly expensive. But what I would always teach my salespeople, so you're basically training the trainer, like, okay, when you're in front of customers, talk to what the products can do for them and really ask a lot of questions. So, what are you looking for in a product? What are your problem areas? So, the more information you can get, and it's the same thing on this side too. What are you looking for? What's your situation? How can we help? You're really just taking what the person is telling you. So, you're asking questions, you're listening, and then you're bridging the gap over to a product or the firm. So they're not the same, but I tell people all the time, like, sales is a relationship business. It's not really about what you're selling, it's how you make that person feel. So in this role, it really is about connecting with them right off the bat. Like, they're going through the worst time of their life, right? Like, maybe they
Mhm.
don't have their kids right now, or their husband just cheated on them, fill in the blank. Like, if you just listen, and I think a lot of people in sales were used to talking. Well, let me tell you about how great this product is, or this Diet Dr. Pepper. It's not about the product, it's about you, at least for me, it's about just shutting my mouth, listening, and then filling in the gaps. Like, if they want this as their outcome, like, okay, let's talk about that. So it's one of the same. And now I'm Elliot. I know I'm just rambling.
No, no, no. I love this. This is so good. So good. I'm taking notes because
I
I'm
got
the worst.
squirrel, but yes.
All right, so I hope you're enjoying this episode. So if you're struggling to grow your family law firm right now and you've tried marketing and you've tried sales and nothing seems to be clicking, it's more than likely that you have a benchmark problem. You actually don't know what winning looks like and what the KPIs are that you need to manage to. So that is why we put together this benchmark report. So this report goes over a bunch of stuff. It tells you what should PPC leads cost? What should LSA leads cost? What should those leads close at? What should you be doing for social media? How should you structure your sales process? Who should do your intake? Should you do paid consults or free consults? All of these questions that are potentially holding you back from growth are answered in this short guide. Now, as a bonus, when you get this guide mailed to you, I also give you an intake script that you can give to an internal person or a call center. I also give you the agenda of how non-attorney salespeople open their call, and I give you the closing questions that they use to close more deals. So go ahead, get this for free. All you gotta do is put in your information and I will mail you a physical copy. Let's get back to the episode. So what you said there, and honestly, I was loving it what you were saying because there's like two types of salespeople, right? And I fall into the worst category. I'm more of a technical seller. Allison, what I like about her style is she is it's scalable, it's teachable because she's not doing a whole lot of talking. So like that's a big part of what she's talking about here, which I'm going to dive into later in the questions. You're skipping ahead. So how did you work? How did you come to work at a law firm? And then what are the perks of working at a law firm versus other sales arenas? Like, what do you like about it?
Mhm. Well, we'll start with your first question, how I came to the firm. So I was working at the body shop. I was actually their national director of sales at the time. I did that for, gosh, almost 2, 3 years. And the channel shut down due to which funds, all the things. I'm not going to go into that. But long story short, they dissolved our, not just my role, but the entire North America company. So I was out of a job, posted on LinkedIn that I was looking for something in sales. I've known Hannah since we were 18 years old. We went to college together. She saw my LinkedIn post and we had several conversations, and I talked to Tara in marketing. So it really just, it's one of those weird, crazy stories where the universe just knows what it's doing and it puts you on the right path. And it's funny, I never thought, coming from beauty sales to law, I was like, Hannah, like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. But as somebody who has gone through a divorce and a child support situation, like, now I get to, I call it, use my pain for purpose. So I always wonder, like, why did I have to go through this? Why my kids? Why my family? So it's interesting, just the path with my career, but also personally, just how I got here. And I do think that's one part of this that helps in this line of work. Like, I can say, you know what, Elliot, I've been there. I know exactly what you're going through. I've been there. myself. So that is how I came into the role through Hannah, and just she really was excited about my sales background and what I had done before, because again, sales is all about people, and I clearly had a lot of experience with that.
Yeah. So for those listening, right, a lot of people think that like either they got to turn a paralegal into a salesperson or an intake person or like what are your thoughts on having like do you need legal experience to be a salesperson at a family law firm? Like what about your current team? Like how many of them actually have legal experience?
0.
There you go. Okay.
Literally, I think Kyle came from tech sales. Blake was in hot tub sales. Amanda was a teacher. I came from the beauty industry. So I think a lot of times people think, oh, yeah, it would make sense for them to have legal experience, but none of us do. And Elliot, you know, like how good our sales team is. We're really good. We are really good, not to brag, but my team is amazing. And we don't have legal background. And I tell people on our case evaluations, I am not a lawyer. I can't give you any legal advice, but what I can do is just listen, answer your questions. And if I do need to go to an attorney, if there's like a burning question that you like have to get answered today that does fall into that legal advice category, I'm going to find out because I don't want to leave you hanging. So all of that to say, a good salesperson does not need legal experience or legal background.
So we started bleeding into it, and this is the burning question, right? I stole that line from your sales script.
Yes.
So people don't understand how it is that you can have a full sales conversation and close a client for full on divorce or custody or whatever without them talking to an attorney, without them meeting their attorney. Like they just, it doesn't make sense at all. So how does it actually work for a non-attorney salesperson? Like, what is the conversation about? And then
Mhm.
how do you actually do it? Like, what happens if it's really complex? Like, what is your go-to there? Or are you giving advice? That's the big concern. So, how does this role actually work?
Yeah. So you asked me, what is the call about? The call is about them. Just listen. So, really, what I do in my case evaluations is I just very briefly open it up like, okay, Elliot, I don't know too much about your situation. I just know divorce with kids, been some infidelity. So, I'm just going to let you fill me in on the good, the bad, the ugly. Shut up. Let them go. Okay. So, they spill their guts. All right, man, that sounds that sounds rough. Thank you so much for taking me through that. A lot of the conversation has been about the past and about the situation. So for the next couple minutes, I want to make it about you. How are you holding up through all that? What's your support system like? Again, spill their guts. Get a little bit more technical information like, okay, we've made it through the hard part. Just have a few more questions about finances, assets, da da da. Okay, now let me ask you this. Let's say we're a year from now, your divorce is over, the dust has settled. What does that next chapter look like for you? Because again, we've been talking about the past, the present. Let's focus on your future. What's going to bring you joy and peace? What would you want us to do for you? Again, then they tell you, all right, now you've got three options. Option one, you can do nothing. But when you do nothing, nothing changes. So him drinking all the time in front of your kids, her cheating on you, all that stuff is still going to be around. So tie back in what they say as much as you can throughout the conversation. Their kids' names, all right, you know what? If we do nothing, little Jimmy's still going to be, hearing all these fights, blah, blah, blah. All right. Option two, you can represent yourself. You don't have to have an attorney to get divorced. But keep in mind when you represent yourself, you may think you're saving money, but it may cost you in the long run. And also, all the things that you mentioned you want child support, spousal support, the house that's on you to figure out and make sure that you can get it. Or option three, you can have an attorney from this firm in your corner looking out for you and kids' names and all the things you just mentioned, not even to make this contentious, but you just have somebody who's going to get you over to the other side with the best outcome and as peacefully as possible. So, after hearing those options between one, two, and three, which do you think is going to work the best for you? So, I know that was like a
That's amazing.
detail
Amazing.
wanted, but that is sort of the outline. And whatever they're telling you, they want, that future piece, whatever they're telling you was the reason they called a problem, like tie in all of those emotions. And even like one part I kind of skipped over was when they're done telling me about the problem. Yes, how are you holding up support system? But oh, you know what, Elliot? I've got to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You said that he drives drunk with the kids in the car. When you found that out, what was going through your mind? How did that make you feel? When you saw those text messages from her boss, man, what was going, like, how did that sit with you? What was going through your mind? Those types of questions that really gets people to just be more in the situation in the moment, and they get emotional. So the more, I hate to say it, but I mean, the more you can bring out those emotions in people, it really does help them to see a path forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I wanna bring it back too for, like, people listening because I know Allison, I know her team, they've been through this, and so they're selling as a service, right? They're not trying to get your money or, so tell me how, like, what do you think when you talk to these people? Like, are you putting yourself in their shoes? Like, do you approach it with like compassion, or are you just like a numbers, like let's close them, and anybody that comes through is fresh meat?
For me, this is not, I mean, obviously we have numbers that we have to hit, but it's not about the numbers for me. If somebody wants to wait or reconcile or I mean, that's great. We always are rooting for people to make it. But what I like to do in my case evaluations, because again, as you know, Elliot, we're talking to a lot of people every single day. So sometimes it can get a little monotonous, like, okay, another person, another problem. But you do have to step back and put your, like you said, put yourself in that person's shoes. And what I think it was Christopher Anderson, somebody gave me this tip a while ago when I first started, is that it will get heavy, it will get monotonous. So anytime somebody says a kid's name, I put in my own kids' names. So Noah, Zeller, like that helps to bring it, make it more real on my end. Like I remind myself that once upon a time, this was me. So it does help to keep things in perspective.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why a lot of attorneys have a mental block on this is like sales is icky, but
Mhm.
if your team is compassionate and they believe in the firm's mission, I've just seen it go so well for all parties involved. So one question, right? You're having this conversation, which was amazing that Allison was nice enough to take us through that because by the way, that was gold. How do you deal with somebody asking like, well, okay, I want to get full custody of my kids. Do you think that's going to happen? How's it going to happen? Right? Like, how do you address a legal type question like that?
Yeah, so how do we handle the more legal question type? And I think where I was going with that earlier is I was going to tie it back into part of the call. But anytime somebody has a legal question during the process, I say, you know what, part of our next steps here is, the engagement letter or retainer, and then to schedule you for what we call an initial strategy session. And in the initial strategy session, because again, I know that's a really burning question, and it's very important to you, so you're going to get an hour to go over everything with your attorney, the attorney who's been assigned to your case. They're going to meet with you for that strategy session and get a lot more detailed and granular with you than we're doing here on this call. So, I mean, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, because that's, that house question, that child support question, I know that's really important to you. So, let's table that for right now. And then I'll make a note for your attorney to go over that with you in that strategy session. So, they'll cover it in just a few days.
Do you ever get pushback on that, like just punting it to the strategy session, or is it like that? It's just that simple, and we have this mental block in our head that they have to have this answer today.
Honestly, it's really rare. I mean, again, I'm a big believer in verbiage and how you word things. So if you word that and you set up that initial strategy session in the right way, they're usually like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because yeah, you're not an attorney. I get it. So if you position it to where they're going to have that meeting with their attorney, they're going to get to go through all of their legal questions. And then I even say, like, after that meeting, they're going to go to work for you. They're going to put together a plan of the best next steps and the best legal course of action to take on your behalf and on behalf of kids' names to move everything forward. So you're kind of recapping what that meeting is going to entail. And I think that puts a lot of people's minds at more peace and puts them at ease, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, no, completely. So it's really just a mental block then in people's heads, like a non-attorney can't give legal advice. How could they possibly? So one more question, because I think this is a big one for lawyers who are thinking about adopting this. How do you not let in, because a lot of them like to do the consults themselves so they don't let in terrible clients, as bad as that sounds, like clients that they are not well equipped to serve, or people that are going to drain them, or people that are not going to pay, right? All the things that are troublesome in family law. So how do you guys actually screen is a very, I hate that word sometimes, but how do you guys protect the firm? That's a better word. How do you protect the firm from clients that are not a good fit?
Yeah, really good question. So, and that's a hard one because you know me, I just want to bring in everybody. But I've learned the hard way that you don't want to bring in everybody to the firm. And honestly, you can kind of tell during the conversation if they're going to be a good client. Like if they're referencing a lot of CPS cases, domestic violence. One thing that I do ask after I get the story, I say, okay, take me through, what do your financials look like, assets, all of that. And if they tell me they're working at the grocery store or doing DoorDash, then I kind of know like this may not be a great fit. So there are questions that you can ask, or even you don't even have to ask. A lot of times it just falls out of their mouth if they're
Mhm.
not going to be a great client. We have had instances on calls where you can very clearly tell people are intoxicated or on something if they're talking about how they want to take their ex down and they want to take him for everything he's worth and make him pay. Those are the types of red flags where you can say, you know what, not a great fit.
Yep. So how do you actually say that to the client? What would be your go-to if we're doing this for a firm and I hear we want a bulldog, we want to take him to the cleaners, we want to take everything and yada yada yada. How do you exit me from that conversation?
When I'm going over the retainer, that's typically when they say, "Oh yeah, I can't afford that." So I don't say, I mean, there's been maybe I can count on one hand where I've said, "You know what? We're actually full on cases in XYZ county. I don't, I'm going to go back and just double check for you, but that's sort of rare." They sort of filter themselves out when I talk about the retainer. Like, "Oh, you know what? I don't have any money." So typically those types of situations will handle themselves.
Okay. So it's not really that common where we have to do heavy screening or anything like that, or like deal with combative people and kick them out pretty much.
Yes.
So I want to get a tiny bit tactical, even though I feel like we've gotten pretty tactical. So hopefully this is helping you guys. Can you tell me, how does a lead work its way through your firm until they've actually met with the attorney? And then what does that look like? So phone call to their paying client. What does that life cycle look like?
Are you talking about like you want to go all the way back to what intake does or after they meet with
Yeah,
okay.
so like phone rings, what
Yes.
happens?
Yeah. So if the phone rings, they are typically going to speak to we have two intake specialists and the intake specialist will basically get their contact information, name, phone number, email, county, all that fun stuff. Then they will schedule them with a salesperson for a case evaluation. We will then meet with them and hopefully close them on the spot. If not, we will enroll them in a sequence, we'll follow up accordingly. And then if they do close, obviously they get assigned an attorney and then have that initial strategy session scheduled. So that's sort of the process. They get scheduled through intake, get on our calendar. We offer in person, Zoom, phone, FCEs. We then meet with them and then go from there.
And then do you always quote the same retainer, or is it different? Like, because that's another concern is like, well, this person should get this or this person should get this. How do you quote a retainer?
Yeah. So for divorces, it's typically 7,500. We have just started to implement a $5,000 retainer for uncontested, and I mean like they've got to be on the same page about everything. So truly uncontested, amicable, $5,000 retainer. Anything custody related is a, or child support related is a $10,000 retainer. So mods, SAPSers, child support, enforcement, those are 10,000. Straight up divorce, 7,500. Super uncontested, amicable, which is sort of rare, $5,000 retainer.
Okay, so you have like pre-selected amounts that have been looked over by attorneys that you guys then just transfer the information to the client. You're not quoting specific situations.
Correct.
Okay. Makes sense.
Mhm.
So that helps a ton. This is a big one, and I think you do this, I would say, better than most, the way Allison closes people. So the three-part close that you took us through earlier, have you
Mhm.
told them the price at that point? And then how do you deliver the price to people? Like, can you so just so people hear what it sounds like, can you actually go into Allison mode? Quote me, do that.
Yes, yeah. So after I don't give them the retainer before I give them the options. So, okay, option one, two, three, which will work best for you? And
What
typically,
let me interrupt you. Why do you do it that way? So why do you give them the options before you give them the amount?
because typically they'll want to know what the retainer is prior. Like if I'm like, oh, what questions do you have? Or, kind of do it the opposite way, it always comes back to how much this going to cost. So I want them to say, I want an attorney prior to going over the number. Because like you told me you want to have an attorney. Okay, great. I'm going to recommend you, Elliot, to our legal team. I think you make a great client. I don't hear any red flags here. So, with that said, can I walk you through our process next steps retainer? So you told me you want a lawyer. We can take your case. So we're both on the same page, which is great. So now let's walk through what that next steps and what the retainer looks like. So because they're already telling you they want a lawyer. So okay,
Gotcha.
let's go. Let's do this.
So we've gotten buy-in pretty much without the pricing objection.
100%. Yes.
Gotcha. And
By
that was the option 3. So you take me through the options. I say, "You know what, Allison? Option 3 sounds great. Let's do this." And then you tell me, "Let's walk you through the retainer."
yes.
Okay, so what is that like, unless it's super long, what does that sound like when you drop the price?
Mhm. So before I even talk about the retainer, I walk them through the next steps. Okay, so in just a minute, you're going to get our engagement letter. We'll take a credit card over the phone. Then we'll assign your case. Okay, does that all make sense? Yes. All right. Now let's talk about the retainer. So I kind of go through those next steps and the strategy session because again, that's giving them a little bit more peace of mind that they are going to meet with that attorney, have those legal questions answered, and then once I'm through all that, then walk them through the retainer.
Okay, and then you'll give them the 7,500 and then they say yes or no.
Mhm.
How do you help people, or do you? I'm curious, I haven't heard it in a long time from you. Do you help people come up with the money these days? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
I'll always give them options because let's be honest, not a lot of people have an extra 10 grand laying around, right? So if they say, you know what, I may have to, this may take me some time. Totally understand that. It's a big chunk of money. So is it okay if I throw out a few options for you? Yes. Again, Hannah calls, we're asking those open-ended questions to get a yes. Hannah calls them Skittles. The more times people can say yes during our case evaluation, hopefully by the time they get to the end, they're so used to saying yes that this is just another yes. You can go to your family and friends to ask for help with the retainer. That's what a lot of people do. And if it makes you feel any better, my mom and dad helped me with mine. So see if there's some options with family. Some people will see if their credit card limit can be increased. Typically, if you call your credit card company and explain the situation, if they know it's for legal services, they're more inclined to up it. Or you can open up another zero interest credit card if that would work for you. Some people pull from their 401k. Some people will take out a loan through a bank or credit union. So, Elliot, not sure if any of these options are viable for you, but still just wanted to present those. Which, if any, do you think would be the best for you? And
Okay.
again, you're leaving it up to them. And a lot of people will say, you know what, I need to talk to my dad or my mom or my rich uncle, what have you. So, but at least you're throwing options out there to help support them.
Yeah. Yeah, because what we see is, like, people don't even realize that those are options. So if you just give them to them, they might get resourceful. So let's switch gears. Let's say that at this point, our audience is like, you know what, this thing sounds pretty good. What would be your advice on finding a non-attorney salesperson? Like if you had to go, which you do like the recruiting, how would you go find?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I mean, I would just peruse LinkedIn for anybody with a sales background. I know that sounds really super generic, but I mean, and even teachers, like, I mean, Amanda Deal, she had a education background, and she even worked in the ministry before, like just dealing with people and in the church and all that. So, I mean, maybe that could be an avenue as well. But I think anybody who's used to dealing with people, and as you know, salespeople, I mean, you're on, you know how to present things and sell things, but law obviously is very different. But I think if somebody has that sales background, I mean, again, tech, beauty, education. I mean, I love that Blake, I mean, Blake was in a hot tub sales.
Yeah.
So sales is sales. So just I think peruse that kind of that industry and see if you can find somebody. Um I mean, I think it's helpful if you have been through some trauma, if you've been through a divorce or
Totally. Yeah.
a breakup or, because it just you are able to put yourself, like you said earlier, you're able to empathize and share your own story. Like, hey, I've been there too. So I think my advice would just be look LinkedIn, see if anybody is open to work that has been in sales. Education, I also think is a great background because teachers deal with a lot of, I mean, parents, kids, all that crazy stuff. I could not do that, but it's proved really effective here with Amanda. She's awesome. And again, Kyle and Blake, both with their sales background. So, and that's a very generic answer. Like,
No, no. It just helps because, like, a lot of people just think, like, "I'm gonna turn my paralegal into this," right? And that's usually the go-to is turn someone in like, repurpose somebody, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but sales, right, compassion, being through it. So,
Mhm.
2 more questions for you.
Sure.
Next one is, how do you actually train these people? Like, what does your training regimen look like, and how soon can you expect them to start producing?
Yeah, really good question. So whenever somebody is brought onto the firm to be in sales, like I said earlier, I'm the trainer. I will start out probably their first week just being on as many FCEs listening as possible. Or, if we have to record some and send them over, do it that way, but just have that live hands-on experience. And then when I'm done with an FCE, call that new person immediately after. Okay, what did you think? What did you like about that call? Did you have any questions? Anything in your brand new, fresh set of eyes could I have done differently? Like, I'm not perfect. I'm always looking for feedback. So, having them listen, touch base with them afterwards. And then, typically, week two, that's when we really get into more coaching calls or role playing. So, I will be the PNC, the new person is them, the salesperson, and we just kind of go through a situation. And I always training new people, it can be very intimidating for the new person. So I like to do, we'll be on teams, but like, hey, turn your camera off. Like, I know this is already a little bit awkward and can be nerve-wracking, but I'm really just here to, we're just here, we're in this together. Like, my feedback, it's not criticism. So you kind of have to preface it that way to where they don't automatically feel like nervous because
Mhm.
I mean, when I first started and Kyle was training me, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have any legal background. I thought that I did. And I'm like, how am I ever going to be good at this job? Because I don't know anything about the legal side. But like we said earlier, you don't have to. You just have to have that very brief overview of, just little basics, obviously. So again, getting off track. So second week, just coaching, role playing as much as possible. Third week, that's when we might, depending on how everything else is going, some people need
Mhm.
an extra week, but I think by then, and you're still listening to as many FCEs as you can, even when you're doing like week two coaching, role playing, what have you. So depending on the person, that third week, we may set you free, and but I will still be on like that third week. I'll be listening on Teams or through Zoom or on the phone, what have you, on their FCE. So I will be pinging them like on Teams, like, hey, this is the answer to his question.
Hmm,
So I'm
okay.
kind of like that safety net if I hear anything that is red flaggy, or if it's a question that the PNC is asking to the new salesperson, they may not quite not know how to answer. They're also able to, ping me during if they have any questions as well. So we're connected for that next week or so while they're doing their calls. And then also we connect afterwards, like, okay, Elliot, you did really good with your opening. You did really good with the closing. There, I would have liked to see some more. I call them heart-centered questions. In the middle. So again, just giving them that opportunity to get a little bit more feedback when they're done.
So you're actually on the Zoom with them, or like you're like floating, like you're in the room with them, or how does that work?
Typically, it's just a phone call, especially if they're new. Like, as I would not have people do your new salesperson do a Zoom for the first, I don't know, couple of weeks, because it just
Oh,
layer of like nervousness when you're on camera. But if they are on a Zoom, then we hop on a Teams call before I just mute myself. So the new person and I are on Teams, they're on Zoom, so I can listen that way as well.
ooh, clever, very clever. That is pretty slick. So then, like, when do you see them start to get like their deals? Like, and obviously, if there's already people paving the way, it's easier.
Mhm.
But like, what is a realistic time frame to see like, okay, these people are starting to produce, this is working, or maybe I don't have the right person in the right seat, right? How would you make that decision?
It's what, that's a tough one because I mean, it takes a while. I mean, anything in sales, it takes a while to build your pipeline. And especially when you're brand new, you may not be getting a lot of FCEs right, or free case evaluations is what we call them here, right away. You may only be getting one a day or something. So it does take a while, but I would typically say they should be seeing some traction. Some people start to trickle in 4 to 6 weeks after they start. Sometimes 8 weeks. I mean, every person is different. I think for me, I got my first person after I'd been with the firm, maybe like probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, so that's a good like barometer of like, okay, they're doing good.
Mm,
They're starting to get their stuff. So,
yeah.
what advice is the last question would you give to a non-attorney salesperson who's struggling?
Mhm.
Like they're just not closing deals, they're not closing at the rate they need to close at. What's your go-to for your team?
Listen to your own calls. And
Ooh,
I know it's like it's so painful. I mean, I was having a slower month a couple months ago, and I listened to a few of my FCEs and watched the Zoom back. And first of all, I hate listening to my own voice or watching myself on camera. So there's that aspect of it. And I just I did like a SWOT, like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And I did that for myself. And I think for me, when I did that, it helped me see areas that I was doing really well in, and then some areas that I was just maybe had been doing well prior, but as I said earlier, sometimes you've been in it for so long, you kind of just skip through some things. So I think I was rushing my middle and not really going back to, how did that make you feel? Tell me more about the time that he did this, like those types of things. So I think listening to your own calls, or if you have another person on your team who you feel comfortable sharing one of your calls, have a coworker listen, and or maybe be in on one of your calls live. Get with them afterwards. Okay, like, what'd you think? Be honest. Like, what am I doing well, or what am I doing well with? And then what's an area of improvement? So I think those would be two tips. Listen to yourself, and then if you're comfortable, have a coworker listen and give you some tips.
amazing. That's a great idea. I didn't even think about that one. I was like, I wonder what she's gonna say here. Yeah, that's huge because it's funny, right? You'll be like, oh my gosh, is that really what I said? Or clearly I was botching that part. And then the other thing too, right? Do you store for your trainees like the best calls? Like, do you have a repository of those, or
Yes, I created, we have a OneDrive folder. So when somebody new comes on, we have this library now of really great intake calls for someone to listen to, and then really good case evaluations to listen to.
Nice.
Mhm.
Well, this has been amazing. So, for all of you out there who have been thinking this is not possible, these people are mythical. There's no way they can do this. Allison is one of the best, and again, she's been doing this for a long time now. So, if you have referrals for Austin and San Antonio, send them to Allison. That's about
Yeah,
the best thing we could do. Or send them to me, and I'll send them to Allison because she took the time out of her day. She could be on a case evaluation now to be here with us because I asked her. So we really appreciate it, Allison. Thank you so much.
of course. Oh, Elliot, one more thing. Earlier, you asked me what I enjoy most about working here, and it really is helping people. So if you can find somebody who wants to help, and I know this is just it's a very unique role and niche, but I mean, as somebody who's been there themselves, that is what I really appreciate about this role is not just helping the person, but the impact that our firm can have on their life, their children's lives. Like it's not just about the person on the other end of the phone. Sometimes they have, they have kids, they have a family, they have a, financial future. So our firm does so much more than just that one person. It's the ripple effect, and that's what I love. So I wanted to throw that in there too.
No, that's and I'm gonna throw one more thing on top of that. So, if
Yes,
you guys are hiring a salesperson, a client engagement specialist, let's use that word, right? This is what you're up against, and you want them to sound like Allison, right? She's really good. So it always helps me to understand like what is the benchmark for who we hire. And a lot of people would try and cheap out or repurpose or just like this is not a role that you could do that in. She's very mission driven. She believes in the firm. She's been through it herself. And those are the kind of people you want in your corner. And a lot of the team, all the team over there is like that, right? And I think it makes a big difference, which is why I think they're one of the strongest sales teams I've seen, not in a short span, in a very long span. They've done this consistently. So that was my parting thought. Allison, amazing. Thank you for being here.
thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it's easy, right? So thank you everybody for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yay, awesome. Thanks, everyone.